time. All right. Well, hello to Gallery Chimera. And we have the artist here today, Sean Mulkey, and he's talking about his internal city and his collection. And he will start off with a little quote and a little story, and then we go on some questions.
All right. Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for giving me this opportunity to share my work in your gallery, share my work to the people, and just share my world. That's something that I've always wanted to do since the beginning of my creative career, and I've been granted the opportunity. So thank you again. Thank you.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun, and it's an amazing show. So yes, I'm glad we have it.
But in quote, peace is the getting a brain fart.
It's okay.
But peace is the discretionary privilege and right for the people. And that's a quote by a man named Elliot Braxton. And with him, he pretty much helped pave the way for peace between two groups of people. One from the Maitland colony, from a distant nation, and between the indigenous people that's already been inhabited within the region pre-development of Eternal City, which is the Ayag tribe, which is a highly religious group of people who, they worship the Phoenix deity, and they have a divine connection with this mineral called the glomite, which has been resting in the earth for billions of years. And speaking of billions of years, going back 11 billion years ago, which is called the Great Impact Theory, where this huge rogue planet that is made up of 89% of this glomite has collided with this version of Earth, because within the world of Eternal City, this is based off of a whole different universe, a different, I guess you can call it Earth 2.0 or whatnot. But it collided with this prehistoric Earth to the point where it literally smashed it into pieces, and a lot of the content from both the rogue planet and the 2.0 Earth got intermingled, and they started to fuse with one another due to the gravity that was so strong. It kind of pulled the two together and merged together, and thus a lot of the chemical properties within the rogue planet and the Earth just kind of got mixed, and due to the high volume of heat, created totally different substances, glomite crystals, glomite stones, and other rare earth minerals. And after that, as the Earth started to heal all those billions of years ago, fast forward 11 billion years into the future, prior to that occurrence, a lot of these huge deposits has settled deep within the Earth, all over this version of Earth. And a lot of the majority of the deposits settled under where Eternal City would eventually be established. So with all the life that has taken place and formed due to the impact and everything, and people started to emerge, during, that time, the first group of people, the settlers, that actually, formed their own civilization and intelligence and hierarchy and everything, and a religious system, was the Ayak tribe. One of the tribes. There were many other tribes, but the Ayak tribe stands out the most. And they became a very highly religious tribe, not on a theocracy level, because they don't rule through theocracy, but their religion is kind of like the pillar of their community. And these glowmite stones is what divinely connected them with them, because they believe that it has these supernatural properties within these glowmites that grant them certain medical benefits or whatever. Within this world, there's a lot of supernatural phenomenons that happen. It is very subtle, like them worshiping the phoenix, because in this world there is an actual phoenix that is amongst these people in the region. It's just very subtle. So fast forward a few centuries ago, there's a group of people that have come to this region via boat, which is called the Maitland colony, from the nation that they've come from, which is Maitland. So, and the first group of people from that colony were expeditionists, explorers. And they learned about, this huge deposit of glowmite, that is rested underground, right where these tribal people, villages located. And of course, they have no knowledge of like any, pre-inhabitants on this region. They just know about the resources. So they came, with the knowledge of, finding this underground cave and exploring all of its wonders and the natural resources, only to encounter these people. So, just to make a long story short within that, through this encounter, because not only are the Ayak tribe is highly religious, they're very highly territorial. So they took them somewhat as a threat, because for one, they don't know who they are, and they just totally look somewhat intimidating to them. So through a lot of misunderstandings, there was a lot of conflict, which eventually led to one of the members from the Ayak tribe to lose their life. And then from there stems like just years and decades of like different wars and stuff like that. And eventually, Mr. Elliot Braxton at the time realized that this war isn't going to end. People from both sides is just going to continuously lose their life. And there's a lot of meaningless bloodshed. And, because I think during that time as well, they was trying to convince the people of the real properties of these glowmite stones. And because of the language barrier and just not understanding their intentions for being in their region, they still kind of took it as a threat. So, which in, our world, we had like the Mayflower, the Pilgrims and stuff like that, which kind of pillaged and, raped all of the like Indians and stuff like that, took their land. That wasn't the case for these groups of people, because it wasn't more of I'm going to take your territory type of scenario. It was just more so, there's resources, which is the caveat for like this whole entire universe that is being created, is the glowmite. And they just wanted the resources, but at the same time, they didn't want to go about it in a very barbaric way. You know, they know that there's people that's already, so they want to be respectful and reach out to the people first, but due to all of the misunderstanding and everything, and one of the people end up losing their life, that's where the conflict happens. So they just, with all the bloodshed and everything, Elliot just realized that, you know, we got to come to some kind of truce. So he had a secret meeting with the chief, which his name is Karat. You know, that's the chief name. And they had a secret meeting and like, look, I understand that you don't, we had a lot of bad blood, against us and wars and, just killings on both sides, but we need to come to some kind of treaty and truce. I don't want to fight you guys anymore, and I know you feel the same way, and yada, yada, yada. And he agreed, and they decided to throw some type of ceremony, because within their tribe, amongst other tribe members, whenever, how they settle disputes is they have this ceremony where they have two torches, both leaders, they burn the torch within this fire pit, and it starts the peace treaty. So in that peace treaty, the flames represents the flame of peace that can never be blown away. And as long as that flame is still ignited, there will always be peace within between two parties. So that's the same scenario between the Maitland colony and the Ayak tribe, where they christened the name of this event the commencement of peace. And once they had this ceremony and they presented their torches in front of both parties, the Ayak tribe and the Maitland colony, and they both ignited the eternal flame of peace. That's what started the peace treaty, and from there they can negotiate, the benefits that both parties could have with them coexisting, because the Maitland colony, they're not going anywhere. This is a place where they decide to settle, but find a way to cohabitate it, somewhat that benefits both sides. So after that, comes a whole new group of leaders and different events that are taking place, like their own version of the Industrial Revolution, which now that they have access to the glowmite and everything, now they started the process of developing I tried. But now they just started to develop these mining camps, to abstract the glowmite. And after that, a whole different revolution and economic blossomed from there. And they was able to create their civilization and cities and just different, urban developments from there. That's like the shortest that I can give you, because I don't want to spill it all, So I'll start to, as the, sorry, you can edit that out. It's just, I'm sorry. So, but to end it, that's what came Eternal City, which the proper name for is the Eternal Region, but the people that inhabit the city today, they call it the Eternal City because of the sheer support of each district that they show between one another. So it's almost like a close-knit family, a close-knit community, one city. So that's where all of that has come from, and the city that we have today.
I'm curious to know your background, like your journey, how you came up with this idea. Like, how many years were you sitting on this? Like, what media were you taking in? What was your inspiration? And then I noticed your background is in architectural and mechanical drafting, right? So like, how has that influenced the way you build and structure your paintings? And just like overall, like where did this idea come from?
Okay. Well, I think initially, like when I came back from France, and, which was the purpose to see where my creativity would go, if I was exposed to a different culture, and just looking at all the architecture and
You did a residency there?
I didn't do a residency there. Actually, I was invited by a guy that has been following my work for some time. And, he travels a lot, but he was just very curious. But at the same time, he was nervous because like a stranger kind of, proposing such a opportunity could be like, okay, what is this weirdo trying to, but but it was pretty cool, I guess I had one of my YOLO moments where it was like, you know what, you'll never have this opportunity again, so you might as well just take that risk and do it. And it was one of the greatest experiences of my, creative life. But going there, him being curious to see where my creativity would take me, if I was exposed to a different culture, and it made a huge impact as far as like how I saw, society and, community and these different buildings and everything, and just like the urban setup, within another country. So when I came back, I was just filled with so much inspiration to, I want to create my own world. I didn't really get into it at the time, there was a series of other works that I developed that kind of strengthened my skills in order to get to that point. But when I did, I started, putting together conceptual ideas through different styles. And
did you start out by like writing the ideas down of the story, or did it all start on the canvas?
It kind of started on the canvas, and then I always kept, I've always kept a artist journal by my side. So anything, like any idea or clue or whatever, or eureka moment, I always jot it down, in my notebook, and just go from there. And as far as, what was the next question you asked?
Oh, the one I just asked? Or
the last question.
Oh, yeah, I was just curious about like your background overall, like how many years did you sit on this idea, like how it all came together?
Right. I sat on this idea for at least, about 2 to 3 years, just kind of putting together, well, for one, what would this city look like? And
I know, the architectural and mechanical drafting, like how has that influenced the way you, like, did you bring that into your art with this?
To a certain, to be honest with you, not a lot of that background was included, because when I went to school for architectural and mechanical draft and design, it was more so me learning AutoCAD and just, learning how to, create blueprints and everything through AutoCAD. So it was more so from a blueprint standpoint. I think what really helped me develop this city was, what we talked about earlier, was me learning about viewpoint perspectives. Just learning how to create cities and, at different angles and everything, and
So that was a class you took when you were in
middle school. Middle school.
So because people didn't hear this conversation, so I just
Right.
So that was like in middle school you did this class because you didn't have formal training.
Right. I'm completely self-taught.
Yeah.
So I've taken that lesson and I just ran with it. I didn't use it immediately. Well, not for the work that I'm doing now, but it was in other, creative genres, when it comes to like figurative painting and everything. I utilized the viewpoint perspectives because at the time I was painting more people, but I was painting the people, in these very hyper elongated environments where, it draws you in and makes you feel like a building is 20 stories high, or make you feel like, these walls is just kind of caving in on you. So, and then after a while, I just started slowly kind of getting out of the portraiture and figurative perspective.
What inspired you? And you said you went to Paris or like France, and then you said you want to create your world like that. But why did it spark you in that you wanted to create the city, but then now you're going into a whole universe? Like why?
Well, I tell you, there was a gentleman that I met years back through a group art exhibition, and he came and he took a look at the work and everything, and I found out that he was a comic book, like co-creator of this comic book called Brother Man Comics, and he showed me like this whole world that he's created. And I was fascinated because he had everything online, and it had this like panoramic view perspective and everything of like the different boroughs that he's created. Like some of them were like, at this harbor, and some of them was like deep within the city and everything, and just how everything came together. And he had maps to go with it too, this whole universe. So that right there within itself was a huge inspiration that started the thought process of creating my own world and own space. And on top of that, it's like I've always had this unction to, escape somewhere that I can be to my own thoughts and ideas, and a place where, I'm free from judgment and all that kind of stuff. So, like just silently, I was just kind of plotting and scheming on like what I could.
So where did you, with that, because you had this whole story because it goes way back, right, how the creation is, where did that come from? Like, what did you get inspired from creating that world? Like, how did you do the storyline, what the mineral is, and how did it start with that creation?
I think for me, it was, it wasn't enough to just create just these different spaces that people, can discover and explore. I had to add some type of backstory to it, to draw more interest, because like if you're going to create a universe, if you're going to create your own world, you got to have some type of governance, got to have some type of origin that comes with, these worlds. So that way, of course, like in the forefront, like people's always going to be, amazed by the visual aesthetics, but I want to add an extra layer for other groups of people that, if they want to dive deep into, where this world come from. Well, I want to provide information for those group of people, as far as, the indigenous people, like who was the founder of Eternal City, and like how did this city develop? So, so it's a little bit something for everyone, like if they're interested in getting into that type of, I guess, thought process when it comes to Eternal City, that's something for them as well.
And I feel like there has to be like a level. Did you like history a lot growing up? Because I feel like you've drawn a lot of like inspiration, and then you've created your own world. Like there's like a level of, I can tell there's like a level of interest in that.
Yeah, I'm the type of person, I'm always watching the History Channel. I'm kind of like a history buff, you know, because I like watching like the origins of, you know, where things has come from, how it was developed, and you know, the people, the key people that is pioneers that has helped develop, whether it's, you know, the city or, you know, organization or, you know, whatever it is. So that definitely helped me, you know, to, you know, develop, you know, that world. And then I have help, you know, I have you know, a special friend of mine that, you know, her name is Karina, you know, she's, you know what I'm saying, my assistant, she's my colleague, and she's also helped me shape, you know, the world that is presented today. And it's still in development. You know, I'm still developing the origin, and, you know, and the stuff that we have developed, you know, I'm just looking forward to unpacking it in the future.
So right now you have the 4 districts right here. So, and you said they all have their own personalities. Can you like tell us how you developed the districts and what is behind them, what the names are for them?
Well, the first of 4 districts is the industrial district, which I also call, you know, like ground zero, you know, because it's pretty much the cradle of, you know, the rest of the region, you know, and that's where the development, the birth of the development of the quarry, which produces and extracts the glomite. So that's where the industrial revolution started at, within the industrial district, and you know, where the first towns and cities has been developed, and then eventually it spread it throughout the remaining regions, in which Roseville district followed, which is home to the largest arts community in that region, because a lot of the families, you know, within the industrial district kind of got tired of like the hustle and bustle of the big city, and then all the industrial, like with the quarry and the mining and everything. So they wanted to extend out where they can develop a more peaceful community and also tap into, you know, their creative potential. So that's where the Roseville district came out of. You know, it was just a time of kind of like their own renaissance, you know, because at the time it was just work and politics and just industry, and they wanted to get out of that and create something fresh. And the 3rd district, because they was continue to spread, and this one's more like in the southern region, is the corner district, and where, you know, they started to get more into like the commercial goods, and at the time they was also partnering up with neighboring countries, you know, and, you know, doing like deals with them and everything as far as the goods and everything. So that's where the birth of the free ports, you know, the harbor ports, where, you know, they get all the goods and everything, and they distribute it through the other districts throughout the region. So, and last but not least came the Garrington district, which is a huge tourist district, where the new money, you know, because the Roseville district is kind of like where the old money is, you know, people has grown their wealth within the industrial district, so they had the money to, you know, move out into another part of the region to develop or whatnot. And so the new money, you know, started to sprout out within the Garrington region, and because they was closer to the water, which is the Gulf of Niue, which is the nation in which the internal city resides in, they was able to, create their lavish communities, especially the Garrington Hills, where it's kind of like your Palisade, Beverly Hills, kind of like Hollywood and everything, to where they can further create more of kind of like an entertainment, industry and fashion and, have that lavish lifestyle within the region. So, which kind of, give each district their own distinct personality, like you said, different aspects of urban city living.
Is this like based on, you said you're originally from Atlanta, or have you lived in any other cities?
I'm originally from Albany, Georgia.
So is this highly based on places that you've lived and your experiences, or is this more of what you would think it would be like to live in an area like this, or talk more about that?
It's definitely a mixture of like my personal experiences and just me imagining, what, society would look like, through my lens. Like as far as like the corner district, especially this piece behind me right here, downtown Braxton, is kind of based off of, my experience living in Midtown, where everything is just close proximity to, where I stayed, where the grocery store was maybe like a few blocks away, the hospital was not far, and, transit was not far. So, and then my job, because at the time I was working as a concierge, so, my job wasn't that far away from where I stayed. So I took that experience and I just incorporated into the piece downtown Braxton, and also just just kind of reimagining, for the other districts, even though I haven't really been to some of these places, kind of like your LAs and your, I've been to Chicago, but just kind of, through my lens, just seeing, what it's like, within this world, this universe, what life could be like to, live on the west coast of Eternal City, and, still being developed and everything. So this is where I'm hoping in the future I can collaborate with other creatives, that have specific skills in, what they do outside of what I do, so they can provide a different set of expertise, so I can further, develop the culture within these different districts. So, but yeah, it's just kind of like a what if scenario of, how I imagine, just living on the beach side or living within a highly industrial area, and what the culture would look like, as far as like shops, or whether it's kind of like like office buildings, or what the laws look like, or.
And I feel like different types of people can relate to it.
Right. So it's not something that I can personally, relate, but how would other people, kind of relate? Is it through nostalgia? Does this particular borough within the district, does it remind them of their childhood home, or where would you go? Where would you, what place kind of captures your eye the most, that kind of reminds you of, like an event in your past life or whatnot?
And then you have like with the colors, there's like you in your art style, it's like very urban and whimsical. How did you choose the colors? Like, how did you? Because it's such a bright, whimsical,
vibrant.
Yeah.
Yeah, for one, I chose like to specify the different colors for the districts, to give them their own specific identity. And from there, I was able to, it wasn't hard at all, especially like with the industrial district. I wanted something that was a little bit more like earth tones, kind of earthy, with a splash of like some other colors, like your purples and your amber colors, for the industrial district. And for like the corner district, which this piece right here is kind of like the first piece that started everything, like started this whole universe. So that was already established as far as the magentas and the turquoise and everything. And I just thought that it fit the environment so well because it brought a type of calmness and vibe to the environment. So I wanted to extend that with the other 4 pieces within that district. And I think with those combined colors, that is what helped me like set up this kind of color palette, for the other districts, like the Garrington district, which is more of kind of like a vibey, chill, you're close to the water. So I wanted some like cool colors, like your blues and your aquamarines, and like throw some violets in there, to create more of like a calmness. And then for your Roseville district, since it's like the most artsy district within the region of Eternal, it's also the most normal. It's the most colorful, but it's the most normal, because as far as like your skies, it's like, like your regular blue skies and everything, and the regular grass, but the elements within the district is just, filled with so much vibrancy. And the color schemes and everything is all on the walls. It's all in the sculpture. It's all in the art, and it's all in the environment and everything. So, but basically, the color palette is just used to create its own visual distinction. So, whenever you see a specific painting and you see that specific color scheme, then you'll automatically know that is from that district, especially if you've become more familiar with the world.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. I noticed like with this one specifically, you use a lot of pop cultural references, and I was curious how you choose which ones to include and what do they represent to you in this fictional world?
A lot of the pop cultural references is kind of random, so to speak. But as I was putting, especially this one, as I was putting this one together, because I always knew, because I love spoof art. I love references that kind of make you chuckle a little bit, like, oh, I get that reference and everything. So as I was putting this together, like the ideas just started playing in my head, like, okay, what if I had like a movie poster, but what would that movie poster look like? But then I came across on the internet, The Godfather. I'm like, oh, that'd be something dope. But then again, I want to incorporate myself in it a little bit, and just make it something fun, something that, because the thing about this universe is that I don't want to create a world where everything is just so new that you can't really relate to it. So I want to have just enough familiarity in the world, but in close examination, it's something totally different. So oftentimes, like, where you see the sign that says Coca-Cola, it's based off of the actual product Coca-Cola, but, just kind of making those little tweak adjustments. There's your familiarity. It's something that, a lot of people can become familiar with. And then I just kind of insert my own business, logo ideas into the work as well. So that way it can still feel like it belongs specifically in the world of Eternal. So for me, putting these spoof product placements is just for chuckles and, you know, just something fun and something that you can kind of like connect the dots. And hopefully within future works, I can continue to, incorporate these different references. And hopefully, you know, through the previous works, people can, you know, catch on.
Yeah, it's almost like its own little dystopian world. It's like,
Right.
It's like with the colors and the perspective, it's like just a little bit off, but just like enough familiarity too.
Right.
Yeah, with that, how do you want the viewers to interact with internal set of, is it to aim escapism or reflection or maybe both?
Yeah, definitely both. Definitely both. You know, I'll tell you one thing is, you know, there's a saying that I say, you know, welcome to Eternal City, where your imagination is currency. That's pretty much all that is required to survive this world, you know, this universe. You know, if you don't have an open mind, if you don't have an open heart to want to explore, and, you know, then you're not going to survive this. You're not going to survive this universe, you know. So, you know, what I want for the viewer is just to have an open mind and, you know, just come in and, you know, and just allow your imagination to just take over, and, you know, and just really take your time and just explore each crevice of the universe. That's why, if you also notice, I don't have actual people in this universe, because it's not made for, you know, having figurative people in it. It's made for you guys, the viewers. Once you lay eyes on these environments, you automatically become the inhabitants, the constituents of this world. And from there, you personally get to determine how you interact, and, you know, based off of the elements that's already established within this world, you also get to set the narrative as well as how you interact with these different elements. So
I know it was crazy on the opening. We were super full and busy, and we had a lot of people, but at the opening, it was the first time people saw the connection together, like just on the wall. Did you have any like experience with people? What stood out for you? What they said? Did you even have time to like take it all in when they were there? But if you had, was there something what like was amazing to hear, or was it exactly what you thought when they talked with you about it?
I think the main thing that I kept hearing, you know, from the viewers were how they was able to make the different connections between the paintings. And I think as they was looking at the information wall, and, you know, how they was able to spot all of the different elements based off of the information on the wall. And a few other people just mentioned how like it reminded them of like certain areas of their hometown. Yeah, this and that. I think he wants to be a part of the, you know. Yeah, you know, like, you know, that's that fly on the wall, you know.
Write me into the story.
Like, yeah, man. Let me be a part of this, but a glow might fly. All right, give me ideas now. Okay. Okay.
It's like, ooh, and then.
Right. But yeah, you know, just people enthusiasm, you know, when they find like some of these Easter eggs and stuff, like the flags, or like especially this piece right here, where they're able to locate a certain area that correlates to this piece right here, you know, and even like the basketball court, or like certain cars and everything, and like the different spoof product placement. You know, they would share that with me, and it's like, wow, that's exactly, you know, what, you know, I was, you know, aiming for, you know, people to, you know, to react, you know. So that was pretty dope, you know, witnessing that, you know.
Yeah, it was there when I was talking with people. That was so excited how people like saw themselves in it, or they could live there, or this would be a nice place.
Yeah, that was another aspect. You know, there was
Yeah.
like, you know, if I was to immerse myself in this world, you know, I would be in like the Garrington district because I
Yes.
love the beach and, you know, and I love like lavish stuff. And then some people say, well, you know, I would definitely live in the corner district because this feels like home. You know, this feels like, you know, this reminds me of my current neighborhood. So, you know, I like, you know, hearing that reaction as well.
So do you ever find like any boundaries as you're expanding this city? Like, what are your future plans? Like, are you going to create more districts? Like, how far do you want to take it? And like, yeah, how many more paintings do you want to do? Or I just want to know all the details of what you have planned for the future.
Well, considering this is going to be a lifelong project, I'm going to be, you know, creating and developing this universe to the day I die, you know. So, yeah, there's definitely a lot of future plans for the development of this world. There's going to be a lot more paintings coming out of this. That's going to be focusing on other areas within the different districts. I think I'm not going to create any more districts within this world. I think 4 is the magic number for me, you know, but I will eventually, I do want to expand to other regions outside of Eternal City, you know, so that's definitely something that I want to explore. But it's so much meat that I can chew off of within this district that I have yet to unlock. And I'm looking forward to like the harbor off, you know, within the corner district. Like, you know, I mean, a lot of people don't know that, you know, they share the same coastal area as the Garrington. So my thing is, and this is where I guess the economic part comes in, it's like, how do they get their goods, you know? So they get it through the ports, you know? So I want to explore that area, you know, as far as like the, you know, the ports off of the corner coastal area, you know, and then, or like in the industrial district, you know, the quarry, there's a whole community that is established around the quarry. So what does that community look like? Because within the quarry, that company, the name of the company is called the IGMC, which is the International Geonomics Mining Company, which is a multinational corporation, you know. So there's other families that is from other countries that lives within that community. So what does that look like? You know, so there's so much to explore. And then eventually I want to move into like other creative venues like film. You know, I want to create a whole documentary on the history of Eternal City. And I also want like the movie industry, you know, like animation. You know, I want to create a whole anthology series based off of different stories that can come out of Eternal City.
So with that, if you have that, would you put people into the animation then, or no?
Well, the good thing about that is I'm currently a part of an animation team. So
No, I mean in
like
the
characters.
World,
oh yeah, definitely.
You would put, because you don't have humans or animals or
Absolutely.
in it. So but with animation, would you
Absolutely.
create people?
And then what happened is with the future works and paintings, then, you know, that can create Easter eggs, you know, as far as like, look at this, you know, this is where this character used to live, or, you know, you see this bicycle right here, or you see this specific region right here, this is where this person comes from, you know. So it just creates a domino effect of other genres and other creative arts that can come, you know, from this. And also, like with me, you know, I have a connection with the poetry community. So I'm currently developing some type of poetry community within this world, you know. So that's something that I definitely want to get into, and hopefully I can collab with poets that'll help me further develop that. So that's some of the many projects that I want to eventually develop within Eternal City, in the near future.
There's a lot to come.
Oh yeah, yeah, a lot to come. A lot, yeah.
I have a question about your process, because whenever I look at art, I always try to imagine what the artist looks like in their studio while they're painting it. And like with your work, when you get pretty up close, I imagine you have to keep stepping back just to get a view of it, especially with the perspective and the fisheye lens. And the question I was going to ask earlier is even how controlled is everything? Even these little speckles on the ground. Was that more of just chance, you flicking the paintbrush, or was that okay, no, I want this dot here. I just want to hear about your process while painting it.
Well, the process as far as these type of paintings is all kind of like a layering process. I kind of approach, it's a layering process, right? I approach building these worlds like an actual construction site. That's another benefit of living in Midtown, like the Midtown areas, because they're always developing, within that area. So as I'm walking throughout the city, I'm always, coming across, the construction sites. And every day or from a month-to-month basis, I get to firsthand see the process of how they establish the foundation, and then they establish the pillars that help the buildings become more sturdy and everything. So it's all a layering process. So when I start, I always do everything from background to foreground, because one of the things that I don't want to do is I start off with something in the foreground, then I end up painting around that, and it makes it so much difficult. So what you see before you, it may look complex, but as I break it down in the very beginning, it's a little bit more simplified, as far as establishing the basic fundamental shapes, and then just kind of building on top of that, and then, choosing the foundational colors, within that building process. And then once I establish all these basic components, then the fun part happens, where I start adding all the little details and the shadows, and particularly with the sidewalk, starting off with kind of the different color mappings. So you have different dark shadings, of lights and darks, establish that first. And then I start adding the little basic shapes of the graphite within the concrete, and then add the little spritz, of color from that. So, so from that just comes this whole complex world, and then there's no limit to what else I can add on to. I can keep going and going and going. So I guess the issue from there is when do I stop? It's the stopping point. But to be honest with you, with all these works, there really is no stopping point, because I can keep developing and adding on to it until it's just.
Do you work on multiple paintings at a time, go back and forth?
Yes, for this one I had to, because deadline.
Yeah.
But if I didn't have a deadline, then the individual works becomes a little bit more intimate, because a lot of people would tell me, man, I just don't have the patience. I don't have the patience to create how you create. Well, what I do is I put myself in that world, once it's already developed. And when I start working on a small portion that requires an extensive, intense amount of detail, it's because of the world around it that's already created. It's I already immerse myself in that space. So when I'm, creating in that matter, it doesn't seem like work to me. It just, I'm kind of immersed in. It's almost like a trance, you know what I'm saying? So, and it's crazy how on TikTok, I posted one of my processes, And one of the comments that I received is that, like, man, you know, the amount of work that you put in, I can imagine that you're just getting lost in the environment as you're working. Maybe that's why you have so much patience. And hit it right on the money, and that is actually true, you know. So it doesn't really seem like a chore. It doesn't seem like a tedious process. It's more so of me taking a vacation as I'm working, a workation, you know. Yeah.
That's really cool.
I would not have, but like I bounce. I cannot, when I'm too focused, I get like, I don't know, and my brain just overheats. And I need to jump to another one. So like a couple hours and I'm like, I'm done.
Yeah, my experience putting these pieces together was the total opposite, you know, because I'm so used to working one-on-one or sometimes one-on-two with, you know, my work. And from here, the passion is still the same. It's just that the work ethic, you know, I have to actually come up with a schedule, you know, to put all these pieces together, you know, because like this isn't the first time, but you know, this was definitely a huge workload, the most ambitious project that I've ever done. And I don't think this will be the last, which is a good thing for me, you know, because it allows that work ethic to become more sharpened and more structured, you know, because when I'm just kind of working willy-nilly without an actual time frame, you know, it's just pretty much, you know, just casually just come in and work on it and just kind of stand there and just look at it, and just, that's where maybe like 50% of my time is. It's just kind of taking back and just looking at like, okay, I think I want to change that. No, okay, you know, and then just kind of looking at references and stuff.
Definitely help.
Yeah, but
The same.
but when you're working 14 pieces at a time, you know, you really have to get into. I'm not gonna say artist mode, but it definitely has more of a administrative type of deadline to where I have to actually create a, what do you call that board? Like a vision board, you know, where you have like a schedule and time, and then you have to schedule different projects on different days and everything. It's like, oh, this is so adult.
Yeah, it takes the patience.
So like, I'm adult, so I should be like a little kid. I should be like at like the playground where I'm like, yay, I get to work on this big piece and, you know, play time.
Yeah.
But now it's like, okay, what's the schedule? Get my coffee, you know, okay, let me see, I got this mandate. Okay, Mondays I have administration work to do, and then the rest of the days, okay, I have this set day to do this piece, and okay, you know,
This many hours.
you know, where's the fun in there? But you know, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm still having fun, you know. But that's why I appreciate Karina so much, you know, my assistant, because she really helped, you know, me kind of not just harness and manage my time, but just, you know, harness my mind throughout all of this. As far as like the administrative work and everything, and the, you know, just the business aspect of everything, she really freed me from all of that so I can focus on what really matters most, which is the work. So yeah, it's definitely an experience for me, you know. And you know, with you giving me this opportunity, you know, for the first time I can actually say like, wow, this is what, you know, like professionals, you know what I'm saying? This is what it really looks like to be a professional artist. And me working with Mr. Campbell, I get to see that aspect of his world too, where he has deadlines. He enjoys the work as well, and he's very passionate, but he has a deadline because, you know, he deals with different galleries, he deals with collectors that needs certain pieces, you know, at this particular time frame. So looking at that, it's like, okay, that's the same exact thing that I'm going through, you know. But yeah, I can see why, you know, artists have, you know, assistants and other people, that support system and too, because it's a lot.
Or when artists work with galleries too. Like a lot of people's like, why would you work with it? Because if you don't have a deadline, I'm an artist too. And if I don't have a deadline, I'm like you, right? You go in and you're like, oh, maybe I change this, maybe I do this. And then the art doesn't get seen.
Yeah.
You would be probably still in your, you would still be there. And you still do the work, but you have to have a deadline and a place where you can say, I want to show it, and then you get excited about this.
One of the things, one of the things that I've learned is that deadlines create that structure.
Yeah.
You know that professional structure. So it's like, okay, through this right here, now it's like, okay, I have to have some type of system set in place because, like, I'm not gonna lie to you, this was very challenging from a mental standpoint. Like every single day, just just keeping in mind, like even like a year prior to this moment right here, like I was always on edge, just thinking about, okay, this month right here, I gotta establish it, and by the time this month is done, I should be starting on this, and then by the time these sets of months is done, I should be starting on this, as far as like the promotional standpoint, and it was just like nerve-wracking, but at the same time, the one thing that kind of kept me grounded was the work, was the ideas and just the hope that all of this is going to come together. And just me looking around at like everything, it's like, wow, I finally did it, you know what I'm saying? So,
you should feel so proud of yourself.
I'm very proud of myself.
Yeah, this is amazing.
So this lets me know that it can be done. I can do it.
So you need another deadline.
Lion, tigers, and bears, man. I'm ready for the next deadline because I know that it creates structure.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what, like if I'm ever going to take this seriously as an artist, this is what I'm going to have to deal with. It's not easy. You're going to have deadlines, and you're going to have to commit to it. You're going to be working with people that is going to require that from you to make deadlines. So this. Again, I thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, to do that. Even when you presented it to me and like all the credentials that you needed from me, like a show proposal. I didn't know how to do no proposal, but thank God I had ChatGPT. Because at first, right.
Especially for artists, because it's so hard. So if you write it down and then it just makes the magic, you still have to write it. You still have to put it in there.
Right, you know what I'm saying? So it's like AI. I didn't get into AI, but once like my friend of mine introduced me to ChatGPT, and I was like, okay, that seems so complicated. But once I downloaded the app and just started, I was like, hey, now,
Much faster. We are like artists, right? You sit there and you write, and I'm like, should I write it like this? Maybe I should. Maybe I should. And now you write it what you want the meat in it. You get it down, make it perfect.
So look, it unlocked a whole different level of confidence within myself when I sent you that artist proposal and my artist statement and everything. And I was like, oh yeah, I got this. You gave me your nod of approval. I'm like, okay, now I can go ahead and start the process. But it just comes to show us that AI isn't really that bad because you can, when you utilize it the right way and it actually benefits what you want, it can be a great thing, I'm definitely grateful for like this whole experience.
We're happy to have it. Well, that note, we can I don't think we touched on everything. We can open it up if we have any questions from you guys.
Here we go.
Yes, I have a comment and a question. And I think you probably already answered the question. But the comment is, first off, congratulations. This is dope.
Thank you.
Man, to your point of just everything that it took to come into making what's happening right now happen. Salute to everybody involved, all y'all.
Appreciate it.
I'm a 9. I'm adjacent. I'm appreciative of art. What you're doing is what artists do is super important for so many reasons because it brings together like so many types of people, encourages so many ideas, promotes so many conversations to be had. So with your work, although it's, we can say imaginary or fiction, we see so much familiarity here. I can see myself in all these different places. So one thing I do see is the opportunity for you to, you as an artist, which is what artists do, forge these conversations of things that, although this is, again, imaginary, these are real life things that are going on currently in all parts of the world. So I do see it as an opportunity for us to talk about economics and to talk about class and to talk about gentrification. All these types of things, elements are in here. And so I don't know if you have considered it, but I would encourage you to, think, about those intersections as well, But again, that's my comment, and I guess it's a question, but also the question, do you think about video games? Because it reminds me of GTA a bit, and we see the domino effect of the worlds that are created with GTA and now how it is with RPGs and stuff. So, have you considered the video game aspect? And I'm sure you have. But what do you think?
Like, the thing about this universe is that it opens up so many different possibilities when it comes to entertainment, and I haven't really thought about video games until you brought it up. I was thinking more so like animation and comic books and like documentary and film, but video games, of course, I mean, it's the perfect setup. You have like your different districts that you can explore, and it can be like open world. It can be whatever you want it to be. That's why another beautiful aspect of this universe is the collab opportunities that I can have with like different agencies, whether it be the video games, film,
You need like a VR experience or something and see it in like all 360. That would be cool.
And if I may, I'd like to add, I know you said it in a very very canned way, but Sean has absolutely talked about building the world to bring in any other manner of thing. So that's that quote he has, where your imagination is currency, is literally everything you're talking about. Symposiums and conversations about, the drones watching and industry and consumerism and classism and everything. And so it's all there in this story that he began. And just as vast as the stories are on Earth, in our world, they can be an eternal city. But what makes it, I think, a really beautiful thing is it presents a landscape for all manner of artists, writers, creatives to come and play in this world that he made. And that's really why this is bigger than a collection of works that look nice together. This is really the inception, this is the introduction, and this is his welcome to this world, and this is just the beginning. So
and I think you thank you, Kareem.
Very nice.
And I think you mentioned about like the economics and as far as like in different social issues or whatnot, where there's definitely a lot to unravel within this world, because I talked about the historical part of Eternal City, where how it all came to be with the indigenous people, and then we have some settlers from a distant country called the Maitland colony that came in, but not necessarily to pillage and ravage and rape and kill the women to acquire the land and the resources, but they was more so exhibitionists. They were explorers that heard about the abundance of this substance called glowmite that is deep within the caverns of this region, that happened to come across, encounter these indigenous tribal people called the AA. But I don't want to get back, into that. But what I'm saying is that because they're highly religious, there was a lot of controversy and conflict within like different religions and cultures and stuff like that. So today, they don't necessarily have, well, back then there wasn't any slavery, but there was a lot of prejudice when it comes to one's culture, anti-culturalism. So fast forward today, you're still dealing with that, you're not necessarily dealing with like racial issues, because in this world, 98% of the people are racially ambiguous. You can't really tell what group they belong to. But what they lack in racism, it makes up in anti-culturalism and classism. But the thing is that, yeah, it goes on, but the way that society deals with it is totally different from our world, because they see it and they deal with the issue. Doesn't mean that, it fully goes away. It just means that they have protocols that, they have to, confront these social issues. So to me, this is, I guess, because I'm not really a political person, I really try to stay away from politics, but in a world like this, I know that it's necessary, because you do have people. I have lawyer friends, and I want to be able to create, I guess, a political system within this world that they can explore, and kind of create their own policies and narratives or whatnot. What would you do, if you was a lawyer in a space like this, and or a politician? How would you, create policies? Because like in this world right here, we have so many outrageous policies because, one, it caters to one's intentions. There's so many intentions behind all these outrageous policies that don't really benefit the people. It really just kind of benefit, I don't know, the oligarchs or whatever, the people that are in these higher, hierarchies or whatnot. So I want to use this platform also as a model for, okay, we have these issues. Well, if you was in this world, how would you combat these issues? How would you, from a political standpoint, if people had issues with, certain rights or whatnot, what would you do to bring comfort to the people? And, how would you, what type of policies would you have set in place in order to combat those issues? So that aspect is there for, whoever wants to get into, that specific realm. That's why I have the industrial district, and you have like the regional capital of internal, where all of the decision is made. And you never know, maybe I might, kind of get further into that, to where, we can explore that as well, especially like through a documentary or whatnot.
Yeah.
Okay, congratulations
Sure.
on the show. This is major. I look at these paintings and I still am just like, how do you go from a blank canvas and create this? It's just genius to me. I am absolutely in love with your work. And I think when I came to the opening, the first thing I noticed is that there's evidence of people, but you don't see people.
Right.
And I feel like it made it easier to make it feel like I could be, or even the way the angle is, it
Exactly.
feels like it's my point of view, like I'm looking at it and I'm in this world. And I love how you captured that. And I just want to hear, like, what was that decision to not showcase people? And you might have already answered this, sorry I'm late. But what was your decision to not showcase people in this universe. But you know what I mean?
I just felt like it just got in the way of the experience for the actual people that's here. You know, now there is one exception to the rule. You know, I would incorporate figurative people, but they have to be in the form of a billboard, a mural, or a poster. Yeah, because to me it's like if I put actual people in this world, it's like walking downtown in a place full of mannequins. You know, a place full of mannequins. You know, they're just still. You know, they don't move. They're not interesting, and they get in the way of the detail. So I want the viewer to be able to see every nook and cranny of the spaces. And once you lay eyes on these pieces, you automatically become the constituents. You automatically become the inhabitants of this world. So yeah, that was a golden rule of mine that I'm going to continue to implement. But one thing that I will do is I will incorporate remnants of where people used to be. You know, whether it be through vandalism, you know, you notice that you have graffiti that is littered throughout, you know, the cities and stuff like that. Or, you know, possibly where there could have been maybe a fight that broke out, I don't know, and then you see the remnants of, you know, a post-fight or whatever. You know, however I want to spin it, but like the golden rule will be to not incorporate, you know, figuratives, you know, people within the world.
Yeah, there's so much detail to it. Like you almost miss that people aren't in, you know, because you can see the trash on the ground or this deep, so much evidence that people are there. You almost kind of forget that they're not there.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then you'll kind of like go home and be like, wait, did I see people in there? No, I didn't see people in there. And it just keeps you thinking. I just think you're an amazing artist.
Well, one of the beautiful things that I want to do, because this is kind of like one big social experiment, is that as people become more familiar with my work and more familiar with the elements within my work, especially like with I guess the economics of it and these different spoof product placements and everything, then there's some type of language that can be had, a conversation amongst the people, you know, where they start to, especially when they become familiar with like the history and everything, and they start seeing like the Easter eggs and everything, you know, I'm looking forward to like the conversations, like to be had within these spaces, like, hey, you know, that's my tribe, you know, the EI tribe, or like, man, what fashion looks like within this world, you know, how people dress and everything. And like, and speaking of the indigenous people, now we have descendants, people that are actual descendants of their ancestors that centuries ago. You know, now you start to see like different tribal symbols. Like imagine you riding in this dope classic Mustang or a cheetah, because it's actually a cheetah instead of a Mustang. But in the license plate, you have like an AI tribal symbol that indicates that, you know, that's my ancestor.
Right.
So stuff like that, it goes really deep. I want the history to be deeply ingrained within this city, to where like there's a point within the history of the chronological history of Eternal City where they had that commencement of peace, you know, after like decades of wars and everything, where the AI tribe and the Maitland colony, they had a truce. So a lot of, you know, within the truce was kind of creating benefits, you know, as far as, okay, you know, well, based off of the commencement of peace, you get to help, you know, inhabit the land. And come on in. Welcome. Thank you. Through the commencement of peace, where, you know, okay, where I get to share with you the real benefits of these resources and how you can properly utilize these resources. And then here, I can build a new civilization for the both of us to where you can benefit. And since you are the first inhabitants, you know, saying y'all get a chance to benefit more from this cohabitation setup, you know, to where if you are a descendant, like today, say like you're at a restaurant, like a fast food joint. If you are a descendant of this, then y'all get like a discount on something like that. You know, like you get, right? You know what I'm saying? You know, kind of like, yeah, you know. So because I don't want to copy the history of what happened within, you know, our world, where they came in, stole your land, and then they give you, you know what I'm saying, you know, maybe like a half or, you know, a quarter of the land that you done stole or whatnot, you know. But it's free share, but it's something that, you know, it's definitely consensual on both sides, you know, like an agreement. Like, okay, cool, you know, so, you know, that's the aspect of this universe that, you know, I want to, you know, set up. It's not perfect, you know, everybody is in kumbaya. Everybody doesn't even agree with this setup. So you do actually have anti-cultural organizations within this universe, you know, so that's definitely something that I would love to explore, and hopefully I get to explore maybe through animation or through, you know, comics or through, you know, like these documentaries and stuff. So it gets real deep. So I can't wait to explore these avenues.